Hello guys, I'm Q. You may know me as Shooter Q. This is the first episode of Shooter Commentary, where I comment on movies that I particularly enjoy, or just ones that I had a lot to say about. This is my first time doing such a thing. I just want to do so for fun and to share my thoughts about things. I'm not a movie expert. I'm just a gun guy. I have some military experience, and I love film. I love video games. I am not like a nitpicky person. People that know me know how I get down, but for you guys that don't know me, I'm not like into super heavy criticism, like, "Ah, grenade is a fireball. Shouldn't be like that," kind of dude. But I do like looking at what's going on in a movie plot wise, prop wise, acting wise, and just seeing what we can learn from it. And of course, I don't know everything, so by making these commentary videos, I hope that I can learn from you as much as you can learn a few things from me, and we can just share our thoughts. I thought that'd be cool. So how this works is you uh, get your own copy of the movie. In this case, the movie is Triple Frontier, and as I understand it, Netflix does not put their exclusive movies on DVD, while they do put some of their TV shows on Blu-ray. And I will say, when I'm pressing play, starting from the 00:00 counter on the screen, and hopefully it's not your first time watching, and if you haven't watched it already, go ahead and see it, then pick a weekend when you want to hear me talking while you watch it, and we can essentially watch together. Or if you're the type of person who just you grew up in bad neighborhoods, or you like having all your friends talk while you're watching a new movie, then hey, play this while your first time is going. So this is Triple Frontier 2019, a Netflix original. Well, it wasn't a Netflix original. Netflix bought the rights from it, from what I understand, but we'll get into it. So I am pressing play in 3, 2, 1, go. That in Netflix logo, the symbol of quality right there. That's how we know it's a Netflix original film. For those that don't know, this movie shares a screenwriter, or has a duo of screenwriters who I believe are friends with Kathryn Bigelow. So there's a little bit of the Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30 type of DNA going on with the movie. And I believe she paid some money to produce the movie as well. So there's a few little inside jokes because of that. Though I think this is a little bit different. The movie opens up with this whole briefing. I don't know what they did for this setting. This looks almost like a high school gym or community center. But what this would essentially be is part of an out processing brief for soldiers that are leaving the army in this case. I'm sure other military branches do as well, but this one in particular is the army. And you notice that you have people in civilian clothes that are DoD civilians or military civilians, as well as people in their army uniforms getting ready to leave. One thing that's impressive is with this kind of look, when they introduce Charlie Hunnam's character, you see all the uniforms are right. That is not true of some older movies like Hurt Locker. It should be a given. It's not hard to look up things and get these uniforms looking somewhat decent. You see some of these guys have patches on their uniforms, some of them have sewn in. That variety and level of detail brings in a level of believability for me, because I had most of my uniforms sewn in, but most of my buddies had their stuff Velcro patched. Coming from our Generation Y, Generation Z type of military service, where we were in ACUs and then moving to multicam looking ACUs, which are not really multicam, but that's neither here nor there. Just listening to Charlie Hunnam speak, it's really hard not to forget that he is definitely an English actor. My brother always calls him Charlie, I wish I was American, not English, Hunnam. I think the last movie I saw him in was Pacific Rim in like 2013. I liked him in that. His dialogue was more ambiguous then. Also, this is the second movie since. I love that. Just how he stops the music to go into the radio. It's almost like that's going on in his head, and he paused it real quick so he can talk to everybody else. Oscar Isaac is the character we're looking at, or the actor playing the character we're looking at here. I do like the way that the credits are integrated with this intro scene. Not too obstructive like you see in some of the Marvel movies, but just enough where you can see what they are. Anyways, seeing as most of our main characters in this movie are Delta Force operators, even if Charlie Hunnam lets his English accent slip, that's alright. Because a lot of Delta Force guys and high-level military guys aren't originally American. They come from all over, you know? Also, since this is my first commentary, I'm sure I'll make a lot of mistakes. Feel free to correct me, and I'm sure I will try to get better as we go along. As we move forward, you'll notice that Oscar Isaac's character is wearing a very particular plate carrier. It's made by Blue Force Gear. That is their plate, I think it's plate minus plate carrier. There is a plate minus V2. I believe this is the V1. It's maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I don't think I've seen it in a movie, TV show, and not a mainline video game that wasn't, you know, some Chinese pirate video game until this movie. The idea of plate carriers like that is you slim them down, you give them nothing but the slimness just to hold the plates. It's still compatible with Molly gear, like that radio that he's got on his back, so that, you know, people don't have to buy all new stuff. And a lot of companies tried this. Blue Force Gear, First Spear, made their 6.9 and 6.12 system, so Molly compatible, but using lighter components and using a host of proprietary components as well. I always love this, how he's coming up. He's holding his pistol in what is almost known as Soul position, where it's like close to the body and barreled down. It's a position that came from a training stance to keep kind of undertrained students from accidentally shooting their instructors, but it quickly evolved into a safe, ready stance as well. And you'll notice the little holes in the bottom of the plate minus are actually for securing a tourniquet. I wanted to buy one of these for a long time. These little, like, lightweight plate systems, they never really caught on too much in real life, and is what it is. I do like the setup here, how they, like, kind of just force their way into a civilian home, and, like, yeah, we're going to use this as our little outpost kind of deal, while they set up for their takeover of this, I guess, drug dealer compound. Setting the movie in Colombia, it does a few things for the movie. One, it gets us out of the war zone and allows us to, while we're tackling a place that, yeah, is kind of settled with crime and lots of violence and other things going on, it takes us out of the war ceremony where people were more apt to criticize and say, oh, that is or isn't realistic. And you know what? Now that I'm seeing the side plate carriers on Oscar Isaac's plate carrier, that is probably the version 2 of the plate minus. But yeah, excellent use of sound here. Drops the sunglasses like a badass. Keep your sunglasses up when people need to see you. Drop them when stuff starts going. And immediately we got the NPCs taking some rounds. Oscar Isaac's an interesting actor. He is a Peruvian-Cuban mix, but he's got a lot of other mix in him. Some French, some Jewish, maybe some Italian. He's played a lot of Hispanic characters. I believe he's played a lot of Native American characters. He's played some straight up just tan Caucasian guys. He's played a Middle Eastern guy, like Afghan or Iraqi descent, when he was in Body of Lies. So he's in a lot of stuff. And then of course he plays Space Jockey as Poe Dameron in the New Breed of Star Wars films. I always like this, how he acquired a weapon off of the guy who was down. And he's got nothing but what's in the weapon, the mag, and what we maybe know is a rifle grenade at this point. But the way he moves, the way he ducks, you can tell he's had a lot of training as an actor, and he's trying to work very well with these guys who are, you can tell their training is a little bit off. Like the way that barrel was whipped around the top of that wall rather than point it straight over. Gave a lot of time for people to look at him. The concussive force of a 40 mic grenade in an enclosed space like that probably, it would go a lot of smoke, but it wouldn't do as much damage. But hey, it's movies, and hey, who knows what was in there that he might have hit and caused some secondary explosions. It was a drugged in, by the way. So, you know, could have caused something else. And then he passes credit over to the other guy. That gives us a good signal that he's in an advisory role, like he's not directly attached to him. Not that we already couldn't tell that from his difference in costume. I like that slight pause that the lady gives him as a look towards him, letting us know, like, okay, she's a little bit more of a significant character. Not to mention, you know, little bit more exposure as an actress. You notice beautiful looking people on screen, whether you want to or not. But I like how there is some restraint that the camera doesn't follow her. Like, hey, audience, pay attention to her, beautiful lady. Like, you're giving the subtle look, like, hey, she might be important later. Same way Isaac's plate carrier, his differentiation in color, his activities, him passing off credit to the officer, even though he took the grenade shot and set up the counterflank to the, like, when they set upon assaulting this building and they got hit, he set on the counterflank to try to offset the balance, and then he passed off credit to someone else. But again, setting this in Colombia, or they could have chose Bolivia, they could have chosen Mexico. From the basic American perspective of these countries, seeing police being a bit brutal, seeing the cartels be a bit brutal, just seeing the activities go on here, it's a lot more accepted in what is being created as a fictional atmosphere in the movie, because our views on those things is that, yeah, it's pretty dangerous and hot over there. So yeah, you know, police pointing pistols at people's faces over there, like, oh yeah, that's just every day. And it allows us to suspend our disbelief a little bit more when it's disconnected from wars or even at-home life that we're used to. We'll see that a lot later as well when it comes to the equipment being procured, weapons and vehicles and such. That stuff is believable because, you know, down in South America, or even in Mexico, which is, believe it or not, part of North America, it's kind of the Wild West with weapons there. There's stuff that's been smuggled in, stolen, stuff that's been purchased legitimately, maybe through contracts that some companies wish they didn't fulfill, but they needed the money at the time. There's all sorts of stuff. So sometimes in movies you get a bunch of weapons where you're like, oh, why does this guy have this weapon? This didn't even exist over there, or this wasn't imported there. You know, what have you. When you go into Bolivia and other countries, and there's a mismatch of, hey, there's some leftover Cold War weaponry, there's some stuff that looks like it came fresh from a shop in the US, you know, 2013-ish or something like that. It's all plausible. It's not all perfectly believable, but it's all plausible. I don't remember this actress's name, but if you look her up, there's a funny YouTube video that talks about her workout for this movie. She's not in this movie for much, but she is in this movie for this running scene, and apparently she did some extensive working out just to make sure that this hill climb was done in one take and done very well. I always like this, how Isaac directs the motorcycles with his full arm length and not just some fingers like you see in a lot of movies. It's something that would be visible to the riders while they're moving at speed. And this is what I love. This is where I knew I would love the movie, was the fact that Isaac's character is having trouble doing this running. A lot of video games and movies, when it comes to special forces guys, they focus on actors and digital actors and actresses sometimes in their 20s and maybe early 30s, like young guys full of virility, you know, perfect bro bodies, excellent cardio. Where in real life, you know, you do this job 5, 10, 20 years, you break out and your knees go, your back goes. So showing a guy that is, well, I mean, we'll see in a moment here that it might not be what it seems, but showing a guy that is, you know, running out of breath and having trouble climbing a bunch of stairs after going on a lengthy foot chase already, that kind of sold it to me, like, oh, this is going to be a little bit more down to earth. I do like that, how that camera angle kind of wrapped in on the back of that truck as he went. I wish they made it last longer before switching to this backwards facing angle. Just like following him around and then latching straight to the truck and going with him. If they had made that last longer, it would have been great. And there goes our expensive Blue Force gear, plate minus. Georgia made. Never to be seen again. Just hide it behind a wall. I also like this. If you notice, his Glock is kept in a Kydex holster. Modern holster. Kind of the same ones you see in Bosch. Pancake style holster. Same design as leather ones that people carried for a long time, but a little bit tighter to the body. A little bit tougher. And so to be able to go from, hey, I'm going to ditch my plate carrier and drop my shirt and just pull it around my pistol and I'll be in a concealed mode. That's something people do in real life. I found that believable. What I did find odd was how he just kind of like walks in on her. Obviously, we know that they're linked up and he kind of let her get away, which is why I said it's kind of questionable. Was he really out of breath? Were his knees really that hurting? Or, you know, was he faking in order to get her this far? But the fact that he walks in and she doesn't really react to him at all when she just got done with the chase, I always found that odd. You notice the pistol sticks out behind his shirt as he moves. That is something that happens in real life, but it's not that bad. I still believe it as like, hey, this guy is not just wearing this for this scene. He's been wearing this for, 8 hours a day during his job, and he's used to it. The other thing that they resist doing is taking the weapon off the actor and just having them act in whatever jacket or shirt they're wearing, only bringing out the gun, from the props department or the on-set armor when necessary. That adds a little bit more realism to it. Another movie that does not do that well is, I cannot remember his name, but the actor that plays House, something Lawrence, Gregory Lawrence. I'm probably butchering his name, probably not even getting it right. He's in a movie called Street Kings, and he plays a police detective. You never see his weapon, but you see him wear a suit, and you see a huge bulge that shows like, okay, this guy's a cop, and he has a pistol. And it's way worse than what we just saw with Isaac's character here. But at least they tried to do something to say like, yeah, he's got a gun on him at all times. They just used the wrong type of holster. The age of the internet and gun nerdism's getting bigger. You're gonna see a lot less of that in movies. A lot less flubs and a lot more, hey, that was cool. Kind of cool they got that in there. So from the jump, I mean, we had some excellent weapons use. Some Glocks, some plate carriers, Kydex holsters. I was like, yeah, this is the movie I want to go. And then Charlie Hunnam comes back in his dry tech, Black Hawk down gear polo, and I was like, hell yeah. Charlie Hunnam's like, yeah, you have a lot of military training. See these pecs? These are military made pecs. Look at these pecs. I do like the transition they did there, where they had him doing his job in one place, and they transitioned him to him doing his job in another place, just trying to counsel and maybe recruit some of the soldiers who are outbound and don't know what to do with their clearances and their training. That's a very true scenario, especially since a lot of military retirees today came in at a time where we needed people in the Army. We needed people in the Marine Corps. And now they're getting out where, we have way too many people in this job. We need a quarter of the people we have in this job. And a lot of these guys are left looking for work. So chasing these opportunities, it was just another thing they did for the movie that kind of grounds it. Having this guy as a motivational speaker, possibly working for a recruiting agency, getting people settled in. Again, the only thing I see kind of weird with it is I don't know what kind of facility we're at. I didn't think it was a military facility, even though you have all the military people walking around and the posters up. It looks more like they chose like a school or a community center or something for these things. And, if this is to be a military facility, you kind of wonder how Santiago or Pope is getting on and finding this guy, like exactly where he's at in his job at this moment, kind of deal. When you have guys chewing gum like that, it always makes me think that they had a smoking or tobacco habit before. And now we get the intro to Affleck. It's almost like the first thing you saw of Affleck is his gut as he walked down. And then he looks out to the trash, and it's almost like seeing his own life outside that window. Again, having older soldiers that are out of the military, late 30s, early 40s, maybe even up to 50s, having them have some guts, a little bit of chest flab, definitely beards. Everyone wants to grow their beard out when they get out, but a little bit of face fat, all that, that's pretty normal. The Hollywood image of the operator, there are guys like that, but most soft guys are just like you and me, regular guys. So, they give us a few things, the sign, the lock, the entire house tour, to show us that he's a real estate agent, not just selling his own house. Which, for a moment, I did think he was selling his own house, and it was just showing, like, hey, there's a soldier who fell on hard times. You have the guy who has a pickup truck, got a few stickers on the back. It's a cliche, but it's an endearing cliche. It's believable. We all know these former military people who are like, yo, gotta have my pickup truck. Probably the one I bought from deployment money for way too much money. But, after the initial scenes, initial action, we go through this like little slow bit of, hey, Here's the guy that we saw doing some stuff, going to collect his old buddies and get him in on a job. I'm never not a fan of the, hey, go collect my old buddies scenery. It can be done badly with a quick montage. Obviously, this movie doesn't do that. But I really love what he does here. How, like, yeah, see, they introduce he's supporting 2 households, that kind of stuff. He's trying to recruit him to the job. And what we get from him is pushback, like, hey, we've done this before, and you've done this to me before, kind of deal. It shows that they have some good history besides just, like, being old army buddies. And that this isn't just some one-off affair. Yeah, everything about this setup where, like, using the garage of his old home while his wife lives in the house, and he still has to try and take care of his kids while his wife is leaving him, kind of deal. Having a liquid lunch in the middle of the day, kind of thing. I always felt like that was very humanizing for the real military experience, not having life all rainbows and stuff like that. Felt like the bills on the fridge were a little much, but I get it. Selling his desperate situation. Always love Isaac's face when he looks like that. This character, or this actress that plays Affleck's daughter, one of my best friends, military with me, went to college together. He has a sister when she was like 14 or 15, around the age as Affleck's daughter in this movie. The way she would talk when we would come home and kind of ignore but also care about what was going on, that you'll see here soon. It sucked me in. It's a very small performance, but I found it very believable. Okay, yeah, she's 15 in this movie, about the same age as my friend's sister. Just the attitude and the kind of talking from the throat and cheeks, more than anything. Still a kid, but kind of understanding some of the more important aspects of what's going on. It just hit the nail on the head for me with the, daughter of a 40 or 50-year-old vet. In this case, being my brother's little sister, just kind of hanging around us when we were coming home. Thing. The attitude is just on point. What I do like about this as far as the narrative writing is that Santiago's character does have all these contingencies in place for like how things are going to come through text and everything else. A lot of heist movies, especially, military experts gone bad type movies and TV shows, they kind of gloss over those details. I'm not saying these details are perfect, but, they give us a little bit of something as an audience, so they don't just straight up completely like insult our intelligence in that case. Yeah, that face, those eyes. I didn't expect Pope to talk to her this way, but I did find it. Just the way she acts, it's right on the nose. I didn't really like this. Affleck says the only character we get a bit more exposition on as far as his family and background, get to meet his daughter kind of deal. I always felt that that was a little bit too much foreshadowing. See, he talks about his knees going out. That's real stuff, man. People who get out after so much action, they're pretty hurt, pretty beat up. Some of them, I should say. And so you're talking about a real special forces mission in coordination with CIA, paying off assets and buying people. Like, hey, you're gonna either, if you're gonna work for Al Qaeda, we're gonna put you down. And if you're, if you're gonna get down with us, you get paid, kind of deal. I do like the little jokes he talks about his Chuck like that. That is, yeah, it is. Leave my truck out of this. Again, that's just a really humanizing line. I enjoyed that part. That's too much, Affleck. I think that's the best response to the "I love you" since the Han Solo "I know" improv. One of the funnier things that I kind of forgot is when this movie was originally being pitched, it was like, shoot, this movie just came out this year. It was being pitched like 9 years ago. Tom Hanks was in it. Johnny Depp was in it. It was going to be a much different style of movie. That being said, around, I want to say 2016, maybe even up to 17, 18, Tom Hardy was going to be in the movie. And I told my brother that, and he's like, "Are you saying we could have had Tom Hardy instead of Charlie? I wish I was American, not English on him." And he's like, "That would be so much better." I'm like, "Yeah, man, Hardy must have had obligations." Hardy's a cool dude. He's in so many good movies. I definitely, like, I feel with him. I see eye to eye with him more than I do on him in his acting. I did find it rather convenient that their old buddy that's a pilot is also hanging out with their old buddy, which is Charlie Hunnam's younger brother character. He's hanging out with him as an MMA fighter. Like, that seems a little too convenient, but I can understand, like, if they all got out at the same time, maybe they, just hung around together and kind of gotten the same thing together. The MMA world can be just as punishing as, trying to be a streamer, a YouTuber, a blogger, just a public image person. Just as far as investing your own money, trying to prove yourself to people, constantly bleeding financially. I mean, and just trying to make a name for yourself and make a breakthrough. I'm sure there's more accomplished and very well trained and hard hitting MMA fighters that we don't know than the famous ones that we do know that are on TV with the UFC. So for that reason, I kind of like this. Plus, there are, if you look into real life soft guys, there's guys like Tim Kennedy who did take their military training skills and decided to supplement it with outer military training, and then took it on as a profession for MMA fighting. So I find it believable that a guy leaves special forces, especially Delta Force, and maybe has some training outside the army where he's like, "Yo, I really like this combative thing." There's a lot of guys like that are, of course, for shooting. We can cover that in some other movies, like when we get to Black Hawk Down and stuff like that. More non-fictional accounts. I have some books and stuff I can talk to you guys about. I always found it annoying that Pope or Santiago, Oscar Isaac's character, is like trying to pitch this to him while he's walking up. Like, yeah, he's about to be in a fight. He's focused. Like, let him do his thing. Oh man, I gotta say, I don't care if it's an amateur crowd like this or if it's for a pros one day. If I ever do a walkout like that, I have like 5 or 6 songs picked out that I want for some walkout music. I saw Creed one time, and that's all it took. Yeah, the fact that they're discussing this like out loud, out in the open and stuff like that, I always found that weird, but hey, it makes the movie a little bit more compact where they don't go home and sit at the kitchen table and do stuff. They keep it organic as far as a movie goes. And again, the information that actually has to do with how are we going to realistically pull this off. I like that they give us that information as the audience. Saying we're ghosts kind of set some of my friends off. One of the reasons we all kind of jumped into this movie was because because of the game Ghost Recon Wildlands, which takes place in the former country, in the fictional Bolivia. So a lot of people are like, oh, operators working in South America, this is it. Notice that they say the word recce. Recce comes from British terminology where, you know, a lot of US Special Forces got their stuff from back in the day when US Special Forces got started with help from British Special Forces. So recce, of course, being recon. Recce has come to be a style of rifle that some people build, and there's always... This is a beautiful tracking shot, by the way. Makes me wonder if the car is really there edited in. I've seen too many movies where the vehicles are edited in. I'm just like, I can't tell anymore. But I do think that was great foreshadowing, how they go from somewhere, like, kind of lush and beautiful, and then suddenly they're in the truck. I would have liked to see, like, them actually getting into the country, not just driving up to their, you know, recon points and operational points and stuff like that. But we're still in the pretense of understanding that these guys are only here to do recon and try to get paid a little bit. Which who doesn't like money for easy work? Anyways, in the American sector with that rifle style I was talking about, there's a big argument about whether it's recce or recce or reese. Because, you know, people read stuff on the internet, they redefine it saying how they want to say it, and they forget where it comes from. But it should be noted, it's always recce, and it's recce in a few movies, which is nice. Nice that people do enough research to get that right. You'll notice a few high-quality Arc'teryx, I don't really know how to say that brand name, jacket coming out. Some North Face stuff. He hands out a couple of discreet, locally acquired handguns that everyone knows how to operate. A couple of insecure Motorola radios, stuff that can all be ditched if something went wrong. I do really like these forest shots, though. Putting the vehicle far away and then, like, getting up close. Again, I found this believable, and I wish they took more time with this sequence for the recon sequence. I feel like this is part of the stronger parts of the movies. Not what I signed up for, cliche. Introducing the kids, of course, introduces tension of, like, you know, hey, are these guys doing the right thing here? Like, why are they messing around with kids? Kind of deal. But it also, like, puts in this issue of moral flexibility, which sometimes has to be exercised pretty regularly when these guys would have been doing their jobs in, say, the Middle East or in some Eastern European countries, Asia, depending on where they were stationed. And that stuff comes up in real life all the time. So again, using this fictional backdrop in order to express stuff that would have been these guys' past, which is the present for a lot of us, or past for a lot of us as well. I felt like that was a strong way to convey, like, hey, these guys all have different moral standards, but they do have standards. Just chatter between different guys can make you forget that they're actors for a moment and have them just appear like humans that have known each other for 10, 20 years or so. I always like that. So this is the second, like, knees on the ground, gun to head execution we've had in the movie. First from the police, which was to show that there's a little bit of heavy-handedness that isn't always corruption. And then, you know, from the cartel side as well. I always liked how this scene played out. She is acting as a little bit of recon on the inside for them. And she's going to later tell them, you know, the layout that they need to know. But because the camera is following her, we, as the audience, also see what we need to know for the future of the movie. And that's a really good technique done in video games as well, where you kind of introduce a player to an area with a little bit of preview before they actually go into it themselves, so they know a little bit of what they're getting into. Having the sense to show how organized these guys can be with motion detectors and different types of security. I say, like, when I've been in bad situations, I always thought, like, yeah, I could have been working at I could have been working at McDonald's or Walmart right now. Would have been making nothing, but at least I'd be not about to get shot up. But yeah, showing the sophistication, the family ties, and other things of these guys. I think for a lot of people that don't know what goes on with cartels in the Southern Americas, that gives them a little bit more of an open taste. I know a lot of people just think it's completely Wild West chaos down there. A lot of people think the same thing of a lot of Middle Eastern organizations, but there's a bit more sophistication to people than well, not you, but than some people would think. Again, I wish the recon lasted longer. I don't like how we just cut straight to the bar scene, where they're thinking, you know, okay, I guess we'll leave, and we did our job. Let's drink, get paid, and go home. Also love how everyone has perfect hair after stepping out of the jungle, especially Charlie. Man, my hair has English properties, Hunnam. Yeah, and then he pops the question, which, I mean, anybody who saw the trailers or the previews of the movies, this is like the false premise. It's kind of hard to sell the audience on something that they already know is going to happen, but you have to build it up for the narrative anyways. I think a lot of trailer and movie sales techniques today kind of ruin that. Hey, let's flip a surprise at the audience. I try not to watch all the trailers myself, but hey, Instagram, Twitter, sometimes that's the first thing you see and you can't unsee it from there. I see that, the light squeeze, like, hey, we got people around, maybe not talk so loud kind of deal. And like, where was that at the MMA fight kind of deal? When stuff does go a little bit too fast in the movie, it is important to remember that even though the movie was put together over like maybe 9 years, most of that was just contracting, production, acquiring rights. The actual shooting, I think this was done in like less than a year. Shooting started in like 2018. Movie was ready to roll by beginning of 2019. The other thing with the soft culture is this whole like, hey, you lied to us, bro, kind of thing. It's a little bit movied up, and that would be very true of the age group that these guys are in and their type of personalities, from my experience. Their type of relationship they have together. But I have to say, with guys my age that are still in and doing this stuff, I mean, part of the reason I left is because I just couldn't get along with guys. The whole you lied to us stuff wouldn't even been a thing. They just would have been saying dollar signs had they been in the same position. But see, he keeps bringing up, this is maybe the second or third time in the movie where he brings up, like, yo, we did so much for our country in the military and we didn't get much out of it. That's something a lot of people can relate to, you know? This whole struggle, like, you know, not having enough money, not having, you know, enough for your family, not having any skills you can sell. I mean, one guy's a struggling real estate agent. One guy's, you know, amateur MMA fighter. One guy's a motivational speaker. None of these are the post-military dope contract, you know, mercenary jobs that a lot of people, when they're younger, 17 or 18, think that they're going to get when they get out. This is the reality, and this is something a lot of veterans can relate to. About, you know, you pour in 300, 400% of yourself and you get 20% back. And hey, that's, I hope that's what people really mean when they say thank you for your service, is really just thank you for your sacrifice. Now, not everybody goes down to Colombia to steal a bunch of money in order to make up for that, but the motivating factor behind that is something I think a lot of people could get behind, is, you know, putting your life on the line for your nation's interest. Not necessarily defense, but your nation's interest, and then not really getting a lot back from it. It's something some people can be sad about. I just accept it as the reality, really. But I do like this. Notice how we get this pop from Affleck when he goes into his war mode and his team leader mode. He's got, you know, the lingo packed down. He's got everything to a T on time. We don't get to see a lot of the planning process aside from that short recon scene. And this is one of those things where everyone, this is a, if you ever take a leadership class, military or non-military, where you have like a lot of different people all contributing to a plan. This is, you know, really how it goes down when you have a dynamic team that are working together, kind of reading each other's thoughts, filling in the holes for one another. But filling in the holes for each other in the plan and trying to make sure everybody is kind of on point and all contributing. That's a real deal. Now, you'd think they would have planned and talked about this stuff a little bit earlier. Maybe not like in the moment while they're counting down, but hey, you do what you gotta do on a time hack. The way these two are cautious, it's not really, it's kind of implied in the movie at this point that they kind of have to sneak around to make sure that she isn't blown or anything while she's helping them out and while she was doing her other undercover thing as a contact. But as Affleck said, she just happens to be smoking hot. I mean, if you're enjoying her in the movie, enjoy her while you can. You're not going to see much more of her for long. But I do like how we get this continuation of these ideas for stuff that they need to happen. And then we get these quid pro quo promises. This is classic source development and asset development. She's acting as both a source agent, giving them information, as well as an access agent, giving them entry at this point, and an asset agent, giving them a way to accomplish their mission. It's pretty much textbook source or agent development in country right now. This guy's using a lot of his intel and soft training, putting it together. And see, for the people that don't have the military background and maybe their motivation wasn't cemented with what I was talking about before, or, you know, getting to this more important or more action heavy, like second act of the movie, I think her wanting to disappear with her family member out of a very bad situation is something that people could definitely relate to a little bit more. I think a lot of people have been in situations where they just need to get out and disappear. Now that's an important detail, that all the weapons are coming from inside Colombia. All the ammo and the equipment as well, which, as we get to the equipment breakdown, when we see more of this stuff come out, we'll talk about it more in specifics. But the details of the weapon, again, giving us a fictional account of something in another country for an American audience, even for the most scrutinizing, like, gun guy or gun gal, when they see that kind of stuff, they're like, yeah, I can believe that that's in that country, even if it's kind of newer, or especially if it's older. And see, the Affleck hesitation is very, very strong. the minor characters go about checking weapons. You'll see that in every movie. Whenever the more important characters get to talk, minor characters are checking over gear and equipment, computers, cars, guns, whatever. So we get one final out, but even though we know that he's not going to take it as an audience, we're getting that reassurance like, hey, the plan is coming together, everything's going to go smoothly. At the end of this movie, we'll be watching these five guys celebrating a strip club while eating five guys. While also eating five guys. Again, the little bit of military motivation of just not really getting much out of what you put in. As well as the, again, using older guys, painting them as fathers and caretakers. Any parent can kind of relate to that. Like, hey, you might have made a few moves to compromise your morality and put yourself in danger if it means taking care of your kids. I find that to be a lot more effective. Even though it's dialogue, I find that to be a lot more effective than the bills on his fridge that he kind of ignores because he can't really look at them at the moment. Notice this Pagsat vest that this guy's wearing, old Interceptor body armor. That's or in IOTV, I think it was called at the time, or maybe just like I can't remember the actual military terminology. Anyways, it's an older military vest used in the 80s and 90s. We sold a lot of them to countries we worked for. Companies sold a lot of that pattern that they copied to other countries all around the world. But for a lot of people that went into the military maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was the armor they used in training, but it wasn't the body armor that they used at work. But they preferred that body armor if they could find it in their old units and stuff, because to them it was lighter and a lot more compact than the stuff that is currently issued in the Marine Corps and the Army. That was until, you know, plate carriers kind of became standard for everyone. But yeah, this whole thing about objectives, any injuries we have, we're walking out with, kind of deal, kind of tells us what we're in for as an audience. And the whole thing about objectives of, hey, if Larray is there, we can get him, kind of deal. It just sets up what we're getting into. And again, like the video game setup, now we're back where we were during the recon scene. And these guys know more about the terrain because they've been here. We know more about the scene setup because we've been here too. Only now we're doing it with action. And for every viewer that has or hasn't done anything in their life, taking the moral high ground, they're like, hell yeah, family's up, all good to go. I think they just told him to talk about the actress then. Excuse me if the throat clearing comes in. I'll try to edit those out as much as I can. But if one makes it to the final cut, my bad, guys. One of the things you'll notice with radio chatter, sometimes done well and sometimes bad in military movies, is there's a lot of shorthand that comes in with military chatter. I love that transition, though, how he comes in and out of the trees like that. Or in and out of the bush like that. Makes him seem a lot faster than he is. But a lot of the chatter that would be shorthand in real life is lengthened for movies, even though it would take a lot of time and a lot of effort and make a lot more noise, because the audience needs to hear a little bit more. I always felt weird how the assault packs, normally you do want assault packs to look full for movies, just so it actually looks like you guys are wearing something. But I figured they would be empty at this point before these guys come in. but they help that out a little bit with their cause. The approaches, the entries, and everything these guys are doing. Notice the stock a little bit off the shoulder in order to tuck the barrel in a little tighter while making entry. All of that is really nicely done. You notice that there is only one guy using an AK and he prefers it for whatever reason. Notice the takedown here. You start with a surprising sort of strike or grab, and then you go for what the actual takedown part is. But these guys are moving slow, steady. They're taking control of the situation, using their prior knowledge of it, keeping their weapons up as they can, but scanning, coming off their weapons. That rifle, though, bugs me. You'll see more of it. It has a fixed rear sight with a folding front sight. Again, surprise, the strike to kind of get the air out of the lungs, and startle and stun. And then you go into your actions, whether it's a choke or a stab or a shot, contact shot or whatever. But you'll notice all these guys have like different gear as far as plate carriers, and that sells again that all the stuff was sourced in. They're not all wearing the same issued gear they bought from, you know, the same store, skdtactical.com or anything. But again, that fixed rear sight on that one rifle behind the EOTech, it just doesn't feel right. Most people in real life, they'll run a fixed front and maybe a folding rear or a fixed rear, so that the fixed front is already up if you need it. Should your electronic optic fail, you've already got a iron sight right there. Having the rear sight up doesn't make a lot of sense in that same situation. Whereas having the front sight up, if the dot goes down, you can use the rear sight, or you can use the optic as an aperture. You can put your cheek flush to the stock and still make shots with just the front sight. But yeah, this sets the tone for the movie. They handle the situation pretty well. They're still reluctant to kill guys. They're just knocking them out as they can. They're setting security on their mistake. They had to make a quick shot. They still didn't really go to kill him. And now we're back to the stairs we saw before, only with Affleck holding that position halfway up as the leader. All these taps, all these movements, the coverage, it's very beautiful stuff. I'm sure they did a lot of training in a lot of schools. I know Affleck has had some shooting training. I don't know much about these other actors. Yeah, having that fixed rear sight with the front sight down, it just doesn't really make sense in a backup perspective. It's the only gun flub in the movie that I'm kind of like, yeah, what was that? But the thing is, people run their weapons in real life in so many different weird ways, people who don't know what they're doing, that I'd kind of believe it if I wasn't supposed to believe that these guys are 10 to 20 year special operations veterans. Notice that Hunnam's weapon has a old Arms 40L riser handguard on it. That was part of the old SOT mod kit and old Army kit. It's kind of nice because it gets the red dot a little bit higher. Before we had 1/3 and tall co-witness mounts for our red dots. So it makes a lot of sense. And again, being that this was sourced in country and a lot of this gear is old gear, that makes sense as well. But today, if you see someone running that handguard, like they're either running a vintage build, like they're trying to relive something that they had before, or they just don't know what they're doing because those things are kind of garbage. Now this little breakdown right here where they can't find what they came for, even though they did all the work and they already got dirty. To me, this is a good signal where the movie is going as well. Also, Hunnam has the Magpul CTR stock, but the locking part of the stock is unlocked throughout the entire movie, which means the stock would wobble quite a bit. It'd be an easy thing to snap in place. I'd say that was more of an armorer thing than an actor thing. Could have clicked that into place before handing it to him really easily. Yeah, the money in the walls thing, I found it cool for the purpose of the movie, but I also felt like I've seen it too many times in other movies. But it's a sensible thing. It's not horrible. Notice the slung rifle with the muzzle up like that, so that if he swings it back around, the muzzle is facing forward from his body. That's a very common thing. Notice how he starts taking his knives and his tools out and they start hacking away. I feel like that's the first thing he would have done instead of punching it with his fist. Though, I guess we can understand that the character was mad that they didn't find what they were looking for in the first place. But to me, people have experience striking. They know that hitting stuff with your hands is going to break your hands, and you need your hands to shoot and do other things, so not always the first thing you want to do. Seems like the tools would have been the first thing to come out. Yeah, this is where, you know, people are high-fiving, fist bumping, like, yo, we found the money. You know, getting ready to see Affleck get in a strip club type of thing. It's meant to put that little bit of security and joy and success in your heart as a viewer. And I gotta say, whenever I see money like that, I'm like, hell yeah. If one of my old buddies came up to me like, yo, man, want to go to Colombia and rob some cartels? I'd be about it. The knife stuck behind the magazines like that, in that black plate carrier he's wearing, is a very popular setup because if someone tries to grab for your knife, it's a little bit harder for them to get behind your magazines. But if you're in a kind of belt buckle distance fight with some people, getting to the knife is pretty simple. Also notice the use of the pistol to come up on confined space while checking out the car, using the pistol as a complementary weapon and not just a supplement, not just a backup. That's something you're going to see in a lot more movies lately. I saw that in a movie lately with, man, I can't remember the name of it. It had Mel Gibson's son, Milo Gibson, where the pistols are used as a supplement to make the work easier and kind of work into tighter spaces and check things out. But notice the attitudes from the actors here are very reminiscent of the bar scene. Oh, that's what it was. I was complaining about the assault packs earlier. I remember first watching the movie and I was complaining about the same thing. And then I understood that, oh, they were carrying their bags to load everything up. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So I'm having the same experience here again. And I love that as he goes to look for bags, it's like the kids' luggage. There's like a Louis Vuitton bag. And then here we start to see the greed come in and the movie's little moral conquest start hitting us where they're finding more and more money. He's checking time, like, I don't know, man. He's like, just do it. See, Hunnam's character kind of keeps that. Affleck is now hacking away at a new wall. You can tell he's not even looking at him when he's talking. He's ignoring him. It's like, I need just a little bit more. And we've all been there, you know, just one more cheeseburger. Just one more movie on Netflix. Just one more 5-minute YouTube video. But Affleck brings that line out where he's like, I've planned for this. And he gives us a little bit of confidence to think, okay, maybe he knows what he's talking about. Maybe I can trust him. But again, we've all been there. One more drink, you know? One more hour of work, it won't kill me, kind of deal. So again, when you remove the smaller elements of how people act and their attitudes towards things from the narrative elements in the movie, what's going on, guys in gear with guns, you take that out and you remove the attitude, and you can find a lot of stuff that people can relate to in the movies without getting super into it. Like, yeah, well, it took more money. More like, okay, I get it. I would have done more given the opportunity that I may not get again. And see, passing the accelerant to him for the burn is almost like a test of resolve. Like, hey, man, you're the one that's off the rocker right now. You're the one that's got to be the one to end it as well. I know if it was me, I might have traded a couple of my mags for a couple more stacks, put them into my mag pouches. I got no problem with that. I thought I could live off of -2 mags or whatever I had, depending on what was in my pack. Man, again, that fixed rear sight and that folding front, it just bugs me the whole time. But one guy doing work behind the one that's searching with the gun up. I always like that. I absolutely love this setup for this scene, by the way. Just keep your eyes open. It's lovely. And it's like you see it coming because the camera was on the center of this. Oh yeah, we get that close-up shot. That's a I almost thought Michael Mann was involved with this movie because that's a classic angle that he loves to do, is having his character do the execution shot with the camera right in front of the pistol. He's done that in Heat. He's done that in Collateral. It's all good. And see, now we start to see things fall apart. One, we all get surprised. Them as the characters and us as the audience for, like, you know, Larea popping out of the trap door. And then we take an injury from that because we know the story is kind of pushed off to the side now. And Charlie Hunnam is shot. His injury represents, you know, our kind of unbalance with the story. But it's like, hey, he's not dead, so maybe he can make it out of there. Maybe we can make it out of this movie too. You know, all good. I've had those moments where it's like, yeah, if I can just get my gear on, I'm good to go. Plates will stop everything. But they actually used an Israeli bandage to button them up there, stop the bleeding for a bit. They'll have to change it later. Or I'm just talking real life. I don't even remember if that's what happens in the movie. But it offers some compression as well as some absorption to kind of keep the bleeding down. Again, notice Affleck going into his boss mode here to cover. He covers his inadequacies with his strengths and what he knows as a special forces operator and team leader. And that's really important. The other thing I love about this is just the use of slings. There's not enough sling usage in movies, especially good, flexible, long-reach two-point slings that people would use in real life. And yet in this movie, every single person is using them, and I have an appreciation for that. I love how Hunnam shows his pain there. He's still doing his job, but he has a little moment of flinch and hesitation. Now we get into the cool shooting scenes, these one-shots, cameras moving around, guys. I take it back, that wasn't a good one-shot. But I do love these flowing movements, how these guys go through, hunting quickly, cross sectors. Good camera work. I just wish they stuck to more long angles. I think they could have took some more risk with that, personally. What I do find weird is that Charlie Hunnam has his magazines on under his right arm, even though he's a right-handed shooter. It seems like he would have more under his left. And notice, you know, now that the op's blown, people have already been killed. Might as well put the guys so that they kind of tied up and put them out of their misery before you burn them. Now that turn he did, notice how he heard a noise. He stopped doing what he was doing immediately. And when he turned, he changed his angle. Therefore changing his plane by rotating and then ducking, changing where he was. That is classic reactive shooting. And, well, it looks like a very simple movement. Affleck pulls it off pretty well. So the shooting is not all in full auto. It's semi-auto shots. It's very, very precision, surgical shooting. It's good stuff for a movie. It sells me. And that's why I thought this was the strongest act in the movie. Like, we just get so much expression out of the actions, and we get a lot of foreshadowing out of it, too. You know, it's a little bit more active firing as you're coming up on a vehicle, trying to shoot through cover. Again, switching to pistol as you get closer to the vehicle in order to get inside and work with not so much of a longer one. And there it is, the dreaded mag flip to the outside mag flip. Oh, man. If three separate people comment and watch this video and comment about that mag flip, I will make an entire video about the history of mag flip from real life to movies to real life again and then back to movies, because there's a lot of history to unpack there, even into video games. The other thing was, notice that when Affleck was lighting up the money, he was completely in the dark, and then lighting up the money put a little bit of light on him, but we could see it was fading as he stepped away. It's a very, very good look. That guy is very much me when a plan does not go well and stuff just gets messy. It's just like yelling and screaming after everything is done, because it's just like, this is not what we were supposed to do. Especially, you know, you gotta remind yourself these guys don't have higher Overwatch. They are far, far, far from home in a place that they shouldn't be, doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, and just having to roll on like that. And then seeing the repercussions in the family's faces right there. I like that little bit of slowdown, and then we just get right back to speed, because for a lot of guys in real life, that's how you have to deal with it. Is you slow down and think about it, but hey, you gotta get right back to your job. Unfortunately, that's just spoils of war, reality of the game. I like that little bit of contrast between the bags that are their personal items, and then the bags, of course, that are just bags full of money. They're very, very disproportionate. It looked like Hunnam was changing on his bandage, or at least checking his wound, as I was talking about before. Nature of Israelis, especially your gut shot like that. There are some new innovations in the world that will help a gut shot like that, but they're not, I don't know if they've been very well developed and tested. So Israeli bandage remains an option you can do when you can't tourniquet. And plus, in a lot of cases, they're really cheap and easy to get. I definitely have a lot more Israelis than tourniquets in real life myself. But yeah, bringing in this guy with this suit, or not a suit, but a sports jacket, is smiling, is playing. He's got the Russian MI Hein helicopter. A Hein D. Its chin-mounted machine guns will tear a man to pieces. I'm just kidding. I don't know my helicopters. I'm pretty sure it's not a Hein D, but I know that's like an MI-8, I think. It's definitely a old school Russian boat of a helicopter. Fun fact, in Russia, those things can carry almost like 22 people inside. But I want to say late 80s, not late 80s, maybe like early 90s, late 2000s, somewhere in that period. They banned, Russia pretty much said that, hey, no more carrying people in these helicopters, only supplies, because they were just seen as so dangerous. Here we get a little bit of foreshadowing of the situation. What you can and can't handle kind of deal going on. And see, again, Affleck's character as the alpha dog, the top leader, they wanted him to be the leader when they needed him to kind of lead everything and to push them and motivate them and help the plan. But now that he's being all pushy and stuff, they really don't want to listen to him, but they got to keep everything in motion. So every time he opposes them, they kind of brush it off and they're like, all right, whatever. Which is in real life how a lot of stuff is. It just got to be like, all right, whatever. We got to go. We got to keep things in motion. That being said, I don't know much about helicopters and flight. That's definitely not my expertise. But I imagine at higher altitudes, it would have been, once you get up there, it would have been hard to get up there. But I figure at higher altitudes, like, it would be easier to maintain, you know, your flight pattern. But I suppose not. I just have to take the movie's word for it. Which is what happens with anything when you don't know the details of guns, cars, helicopters, computers, whatever. So we see a little bit of Affleck dark side coming out here. telling us a little bit about his past as well as his state of mind right here. And you kind of wonder, like, what's he gonna do now? Especially as Santiago comes out and he's kind of looking at him. And see a little bit of like a little bit of backsplash where she is reflecting the dark side back to him, and she's like, you know, I have nothing here. I'm a clean slate, but the bad stuff just bounces off to him. I could use $3 million and 2 tickets to Australia, most definitely. Yeah, I hope the commentary is what you like so far. If you don't, not bad. Hope you like the next one, but I'm not really a riffer or anything. I just like pointing out the stuff that I like and a couple things that kind of confuse me. That line about a lot more people will come looking for you kind of thing, it kind of set the tone for a different kind of movie, like when they go back home and just a bunch of bad stuff happens as people come after them and try to get the money. It makes me wonder if the movie underwent any rewrites in the past as well. I'd be kind of curious to know about that, but I didn't see anything in my research. See that there? Yep. Say goodbye to the hot woman actress of the movie who underwent months of training for one strenuous physical scene. But she looked good doing it, didn't she? What I was saying earlier, though, when you don't have expertise or knowledge about certain things, when you watch a movie or play a game, you just kind of have to take it for what it is. The main thing is to remember that if that's your only source of knowledge, then you shouldn't really use that as a solid piece of information. I think people do that a little too often. I'm guilty of it too, where you know you saw something in a movie or video game, you've never seen it or don't really know how it goes in real life, so you just assume, okay, that is how it is. Whereas, hey, a movie or video game might portray something very realistically. Ah, okay. So he says there's drag when you go higher. Again, I don't know if that's real or not, but I'm forced to believe him. And now that we're out with the money, we enter the third act of the movie. Beautiful scenery here. Personally, I think this is the weakest act, but I still try to find some stuff that I like about it. I feel like this act represents the production of the movie itself, and everything just kind of goes wrong in this act, like with the movie replacing all of its actors and getting acquired by Netflix to even make a movie kind of deal. Again, beautiful shots that they did here. And with the shake of the cockpit and the canopy, I definitely believe that they were in the aircraft that we're seeing in the air. Sometimes I have to remind myself that, you know, this is probably taking place on a set. But like all the shots that they're getting outside of the windows at all the angles, it looks believable to me. And that was me cheering for the movie. Like, come on, baby. Just get me to that strip club in Houston. Come on, baby. Back to the Matador. I'll go back to Florida. Valparaiso, Niceville. So at this count, they've stolen 250 so far, and they dropped 3, and now they're saying they're gonna drop another 50. And another 3 is for the pilot. So you see, like, as we go along, more and more gets bled off. So what you're willing to risk, you're always spending more and more. And in this case, we see the money in this situation, which is something a lot of people can relate to. Like, yeah, everyone wants more money. But if you relate that to, like, your health, your mentality, your psychology, your relationship with other people, going through stuff in your career, military or not, to get where you need to go, you end up making, like, these sacrifices. And whether it's worth it or not, only time can tell. But this little scene kind of sells me on that. And again, we just get so close, and I just want to believe. Not in the helicopter. I want to believe in the movie at this point. Like, come on, bring me through. And then we just drop out the sky, and I'm like, yeah, that's what was always gonna happen. And then this whole thing about, like, probably being a night stalker and being a pilot and being a great pilot. I believe it from the way this guy is trying to control the situation, keep them all from just dying. Being in a helicopter that's going down, I've never had that experience, but I imagine it's pretty bleh. And see, Affleck is still not with it. Affleck is still tied to the money. But now it's in these other guys' hands where they're taking the reins and they're like, here, this is what we gotta do. On the hook. Of course it's on the hook. Put things in some really precarious, like, place. Again, I don't know anything about loads and stuff like this. I just have to trust everybody else with this knowledge, but I just felt like that's a really weird system. But hey, Russian helicopter, old tech, I'm willing to believe, like, this guy's flying, he's doing everything he can to land this thing and fly this thing. And that the equipment might be a little bit old, because, you know, where was this thing sourced? If it's Russian like this, it might be old Cold War era where they were trying to drum up, like, communist support in the South Americas. Man, if I was that guy, I'd be getting as low as possible, because you never know what's gonna come flying off of something and just tear you up. I would not be going into the aircraft right now. I'd be laying low, waiting for that thing to slow down. Yeah, after we got through that house shootout scene, I don't want to fool people into thinking, like, I only like that part of the movie. It would be a boring movie if everything was all, like, yeah, tactical guys, operators doing operator stuff, like, the whole movie. It wouldn't be as good. It'd get boring. It'd be fun to watch, but, you know, that, even a John Wick movie has to slow down a little bit to let things breathe, you know? But notice immediately, getting armor back on, getting weapons back up, getting set up for positions. Knowing your terrain, knowing the people that he's talking about, that kind of thing. Look as peaceful as we can, so the rifles go back on slings and go behind the back. Trying to show people that you're not a threat kind of deal, while keeping your boy trained on him with a rifle. Never a bad idea. I do believe more than the recon scene, this actually brought up some real tension, because this is type of stuff you would come into in the Middle East as well. People you do not want to get in a fight with, but they press it, tensions get high. There's assets, money, drugs, weapons, whatever on the line. And things just go bad. And try to keep people from getting their weapons out. One thing I didn't notice the first time, but I did notice definitely now, is that none of the other guys shot but Affleck's character. And he did some impressive shooting for what he thought was a crazy situation. They did pull a gun on him. I thought initially they shot first and Affleck took one to the vest, but that did not happen. One of the things I legitimately can't tell, and this is one of those things that a lot of tack guys in real life kind of do not like in movies, is that when these guys are wearing vests, they're normally not wearing plates with them because that's heavy and hot on the actors, and that's just more work. And a lot of people think, hey, for viewers, the vest will be enough to say, yeah, this is bulletproof. With this movie, I can't really tell. In the beginning, when we were talking about the Blue Force gear, plate minus, there was definitely plates in that, even if they were just lightweight training plates. With some of these scenes, I can't really tell just because of their choice in vest and plate carriers. With Hunnam's little brother character that packs that old school armor that I was talking about, there's definitely something in that one, but I can't tell otherwise with the other ones. Kind of sticks out when you see their backs, but that's all I could think about it. And this whole thing about trying to make deals with people after you've killed a few other people, this is real life. Some people have to go through, you know, accidentally hit the wrong guy, break his arm. You know, someone gets in a fight and like ends up he was just being a little bit belligerent, wasn't a terrorist or something in the Middle East or in some parts of Asia, Philippines, and you're like, man, gotta make peace with his family. Like, yeah, man, we'll do whatever it takes. Our bad. World is crazy like that. Not everybody's perfect. Do what you gotta do. I don't know why I just thought of it, and I hate to be late to it with the commentary. In the beginning of the movie, where they used the grenade launcher or when Pope used a grenade launcher to hit the little cartel building, I believe it was a real M203, which is cool because a lot of movies will use like a prop 203. It looks completely different, but it looks just quite enough as a 37mm launcher instead of a 40mm launcher as a prop one to kind of stand in. I think this one was a real one and not a stand-in, which is nice. Good work from the armory there. But yeah, making peace with the village elder, not just a South American thing. Definitely a rural Middle Eastern thing as well. There's some money, you know, buy some horses, get some goats, get some meat. Sorry about your son. So good, using the fictional atmosphere to sell us on ideas of stuff that they've done in the past or may have had to deal with. That'll come to a head later on in a later conversation in the movie. But the theme is ever present throughout the film's entirety. I always thought, and this is just personal, and it's a bit of a reach, that whole "these men have paid their debt" kind of deal is it's obviously about the situation we just saw, but it reminds me of, again, just going back to the military coming home kind of thing. People harassing you or getting in your face about certain things you may have done legally, morally, whatever, without knowing anything that you've done. I felt like that line kind of reflected that experience. Also, I was wrong in the earlier part of the movie when they went on the rain and all the expensive American and Swedish made jackets started coming out. That was now, not earlier. Now that they're a little bit higher up in the mountains. Colder, more rainy. But notice how the jackets come on and the plate carriers go over them. Very nice touch. See, they really go from complying with Affleck's character when they were in danger and had to keep a timetable to questioning him and really recognizing like his brashness and his greed is really putting a hurt on their little operation here. You know, if he hadn't gotten all the money, they may have been able to actually make it out of there via helicopter. Now we're in this situation. Of course, it just happens to be raining, showing just how bad things are. Again, little bits of dialogue like that, those take me back. Obviously written by a writer, but stuff like that coming from real life people, it's always beautiful. I'm the guy that grew up like really innocent and not really a churchy household, but I put myself in church and I wasn't really all around. I wasn't around like a lot of rowdy people, so for me, every cliche military joke or like lewd saying or something like that, I was always the first time guy. Like it was my first time hearing the joke and I would give the biggest laugh. And yeah, see this whole thing about remembering what you were and what people told you you were versus coming out and trying to do things, trying to make money, trying to have a career, and realizing like just how different things are and what you were is not what you are now. And see, having to accept that when he says we all did, it's not like just like we all soldiers did. It's almost like we all humans kill other humans kind of deal going on. And see, they're kind of Bob Dylan, Masters of War, getting a little Vietnam era stuff in there. But they were kind of like coming in terms with their demons, but Affleck is separated from them in that instance. I thought that was really important. You know, he was the one to pull the trigger on the farmers, and maybe he did so justifiably and did so very well, but again, he was the one to do that. And see the kind of treatment this montage got for the transport, moving all the bags on floating stuff, using the mules as far as they could kind of deal, throughout the water, sticking to the calmer parts of the water so you don't get flushed away, letting Hunnam just swim since he's still injured kind of deal. I feel like if the recon scene got a little bit more of that, it would have been better. Like just this treatment, not the music, not the Bob Dylan, but just a little bit more attention to it. I mean, you can only montage for so long before you've kind of seen it everywhere. Now this scene, I want to know how it was shot because I thought this was beautiful. The precariousness is really, really sold to me. And, you know, being on the edge like this, these guys are starting to argue with each other. Kind of deal. The tensions are getting high. These guys are probably hungry and tired and all sorts of things. Poor little mule. You'd think he's gonna make it. Just like the movie. You'd think he's gonna make it, and then he just falls all the way down, falls apart. You know, it's not just the mule, it's the money. And again, we come back to the concept of losing assets and spending things. And there's just loss on the trail. But you're always thinking about, you know, what do we still have and what did we just lose? And see, he's being truthful, but this is one of the things talked about in soft training when you're growing up as a, you know, little baby SF dude. Is the arguing is not going to help the mission at the time. You may want to turn around and choke somebody, but it's not going to help what's going on. And having to buck up and do that. But these guys, of course, being seniors and being older and being in this tense situation where there is no backup and no support and just wanting to get out. You know, the longer you spend in a bad situation, the more desperate you are to get out. And so the more things you lose, the more it hurts. But again, we get these things where, like, the shooting is casual. It's just a part of the vehicle of what's going on in the movie. Using the ropes to make this little line here where they're passing the bags down and passing them up and, like, pulling the weight down to belay the weight of the bags. Move everything they can. Again, this stuff is treated casually. This is just the stuff we accept, like, okay, these guys know what to do. Yeah, say goodbye to the mules. I actually did a lot of reading about mules and how, like, this, when the CIA was supplying weapons to Afghanistan, they had to get, like, certain kinds of mules that they would ship in, or not ship in, but raise and then, like, bring in through China, because they had to have mules that could take, like, certain amount of mountain air and eat certain types of things and get certain types of feed. It makes me wonder, like, when you do a movie like this, you know, what mules do you get? You have special movie mules, just like you have companies that provide movie weapons. They're just some mules you borrowed from farmers, or, like, you know, what goes on with that? I wonder. Yeah, see how he just tapped his chest right there? It looks like there's no plate in the carrier. But Affleck's definitely looks like he's got some thickness up front, and knowing Ben Affleck as an actor, I don't think he'd be the type to, like, be like, yeah, man, director bro, I'm tired, let me take this plate out. But say, you know, yeah, you make some jokes, you laugh about it, you move on with your life. Or at least you try. And that's how you gotta keep the team together in situations. But again, the loss of assets, they lost some money in one of the mules or donkeys, whichever they are. And then had to get rid of the mules themselves and carrying everything else. Always like that line. And see how his inhibitions kind of, like, fall away from there. Where he goes from being like, yo, we have to cold camp, can't draw any attention, and now he's like, yo, we can't carry all the money, might as well burn some of it. It's kind of like dealing with death, as you know, collecting assets and knowing you can't take everything with you. But I just love that line, like, literally having "fuck you" money. It's a good setup, and then everybody laughing, just kind of come around camaraderie. The darkness is broken a little bit with the light going on them. Trying to keep morale up, keep these guys warm, laughing instead of arguing. But us as an audience realizing, like, yeah, they can't carry all the money out of there. I mean, what are you gonna do? And I'm sure, you know, that's what the actors are supposed to be getting at. You know, what are we gonna do with this? This viewpoint here, seeing these guys with the fire and the dark from far away, that's more important than I thought it was initially. Yeah, see, they get revealed because it's like the viewpoint we saw from the camera was someone watching them. I forgot to talk about this rifle. The guy with the ACOG on, the little bit bigger scope. He has a Daniel Defense IRS-2 on it, free floating rail. Not this one. That's the arms one. I'll wait till it comes back. The younger Hunnam brother, the MMA fighter dude. That makes it a SOT mod rifle, which makes it a little bit less believable about how it ended up here. That's more of a, hey, the props department provided it kind of deal. But again, it's just nice to see a SOT mod rifle with its SOCOM profile barrel kind of enter into a movie like that. It's a good look. And again, seeing as we're in Colombia, who knows where the stuff could have come from or where it was bought or sold. Again, with the action ramping up, this rifle right here, with the guy pinned down, blue pants, backwards hat. With the action ramping up, these guys go back into an action mode. And they focus on the task that needs to be done at hand. That's an attitude that it doesn't matter what actors you have. That action needs to be portrayed that way in order to get the people believable. If they're going to be fulfilling, you know, this type of role. Because that's what, you know, that's what good teams have to do. And notice that they all flank around, they take different positions because they're trying to rout these guys. But you also notice who stays in the same position. Almost like staying in the same position with taking all the money and trying to enhance their lives and not really changing their attitude about it. This shot right here, if you see through the EOTech, how they actually do it with the holographic lens and get the reticle right for the scope that he's using. Or sorry, the red dot that he's using, holographic sight. That's really nice of them to do that with the movie. Get the actual reticle going. When looking through that in real life, you'd actually see a ton of dots that make up the entire reticle. And see the response fire as that guy gets shot. But there's a lot of movies where they'll use an optic on an actor's rifle, but they'll pop up with another reticle when the audience gets to see the viewpoint through the optic. So that's really important when you're trying to sell your audience on, like, okay, this guy actually is using the optic that we see portrayed. It's almost as important as matching the scenery from the inside view of a vehicle with the outside shots of a vehicle, so that we can believe, hey, that vehicle is really moving through an area and the people are really in that vehicle. Is the same thing with matching the reticle to the optic use when you make shots like that. The most notable example I can think of is I Am Legend. Will Smith's rifles mostly all have ACOG sights on them. In the beginning of the movie, he scopes in on a deer, and the reticle used, which is a cool looking reticle too, is of like a PSO-1 scope from a Russian rifle. Nothing, absolutely nothing like the ACOG that's on his M4-ish build. Or I think it was a Bushmaster rifle in the movie, but meant to stand in for an M4. But again, the tensions, the fighting, things like that. Emotions went crazy. It's harder for me to relate to scenes like this, but I can imagine, you know, things like that tear people up. And see, like, with a situation like that, Santiago, Pope, Oscar Isaac, he could be just telling them that to calm them down. It could be real, true, it could be not. And what he's saying makes sense to us as an audience, but to me, the way I think about it is he's just saying what he needs to get these guys back moving again. Also, I'm noticing the sling he's using is a Magpul MS3, I want to say. Maybe MS2, MS3. Meant to be a convertible sling that you switch in a single point. I just noticed the big giant ring on the back where you would convert it like that. Let's see, give him back his hat. Try to clap up and just move on, be bros. And see, like, Affleck getting shot is not just poetic because of what went down in the village, but he's like paying for his sins of everything that he did. And again, it was foreshadowed early in the movie. Just he's the only one to really meet the family of. He's the one with the most writing on it. That's the crappiest job kind of deal. But see, the use of this song, I feel two ways about this song. One, I can understand, you know, this guy had been infantry or a ranger on his way to doing ranger or doing special forces stuff. He'd learn the songs, and he might sing it to kind of deal with the situation and to mourn the loss of Ben Affleck's character. But these old cadence calls and songs and traditions normally aren't the forte of soft guys. Don't really like the dog and pony shows and songs and traditions of that nature. But I can understand in a situation like this, the attitude would go away, and the reality of just mourning your bro is another thing. With the loss of Ben Affleck, though, you know, we come into the closing part of the movie, and what some people would call a fourth act, I think it would still be a third act kind of deal. I'm not super versed in film studies like that, but I study a little bit. And it's just like the loss of momentum and the loss of the aggressive attitude, and it puts us in a repentant nature. You know, they burned money, they lost a lot of money with the donkeys, they dropped a lot of money off in the snow from the helicopter, spent money on the helicopter, spent money on the, you know, the girl, the informant that they were using to get out. They've been bleeding cash since this started. This rifle with the Dana Defense build, by the way, the one that was just slung, just to point it out again. And see the split from the group in the narrative right now, to me, of course, it just represents him trying to get the recon and get the data for what he can do. But this also reminds me of when I think it was a ski team or a hockey team, rugby team, soccer team or something. They got stranded in the Andes and, you know, sent one person down with all of their food and stuff to try and find what they were looking for so they could get out. And this just reminded me of that for some reason. But the other thing it gets to me is just like, you know, when something catastrophic happens like that, somebody dying and a whole bunch of crap happening, sometimes you gotta separate yourself from the bad stuff for a little bit to get back on your game. Just like this guy said, like, we gotta get back on our game. Again, that CTR stock with that lock unlock the whole time really bugs me. And see, I think that this conversation about killing people is probably one of the more honest conversation of actors acting as veterans discussing, you know, how many people have you killed kind of thing. Whereas, you know, some of them are fine with it, some of them don't react, some of them are livid with it. One's like, you know, why would you want to know how many people you killed? One person knows exactly how many people he's killed, at least in confirmed kills. And I think that's the more honest approach to it, not the stuff you see on the news or the stuff on Facebook or Twitter where some guy's like, yeah. I mean, I got friends that like, yeah, I tattooed hash marks in my arm for every guy I killed. And, you know, you got professionals on YouTube that are like, how could you count? Why would you want to know? Kind of deal. Like, who cares about stuff like that? Like, it's just part of the job. Don't be a psychopath. Kind of deal. So I think the more honest conversation is the one that comes from multiple answers and multiple sides. Not everybody's the same. And things affect people differently. Like he said, he's doing better than he should be for having killed so many people in his mind. That line right there. So we go through him, channeling his inner part of Affleck's character. Because again, more time you spend in a situation, the more desperate you are. You just want to get out of there. I like that line. See, it turns around because it's kind of manipulative on them. When you're not fighting for a cause, you're just fighting for money. Saying like he died for this money. trying to reconcile and get these things together, get your feelings in check, understand your capabilities. Again, the emotional side of it, I have to admit, is not my best thing about reading and understanding what emotions some people should be going through or shouldn't be going through, or whatever. So when a movie tries to sell me on that, I don't always get it, but I can see where it's coming from as a writer. One thing I will say I really appreciate is, one, you notice all the rounds are down in those magazines, the way they have them loaded. Not only is that really how you would carry them for reloading in order to keep dirt and dust out of your magazines and have a consistent hold on the bottom of the magazine when you insert the top into the weapon, from a movie making standpoint, not having to show bullets or not having to show cartridges within the magazines, that just makes your job easier as a director or cinematographer and anything like that. You also notice for the relatively low amount of shooting that they've done, most of them still have full mags plussed up. The mag that we saw Santiago flip out of his rifle earlier, you'll notice that it's missing from his back. He may have taken it from his front for a reload, but the one on the back was used to backfill into his pouches on the front for easier access. And see, this whole thing about taking just whatever you can carry and leaving the rest behind. If you've ever read the things they carried about soldiers in Vietnam, it's not just about carrying physical things, but what you carry mentally and emotionally with you after events like this and just warfare or just hardship. Again, using this fictional situation to illustrate for things that people go through in real life, I think was a good choice. So having to kind of abandon the things you may have been tied to, whether it was loyalty to country or thinking you were just doing a great job, and only carrying what you can afford to carry on your back, your responsibilities, you taking care of your family, you being mentally happy so that you're just not struggling all the time. Sometimes that's more important. Is, you know, getting rid of the baggage, getting rid of the things that are just weighing down on you. And you still carry some weight, some responsibility, but you carry only what you can. And everything else just has to go on the wayside, get tucked away for a bit. That's not to say, like, hey, you struggling veteran out there, tuck away your feelings, but more like, hey, you gotta learn to let some stuff go until you can deal with it properly. And, you know, everyone out there, you know, find someone to help you do that if you need to, professional or friends or otherwise. Again, for the low amount of time that they had to make this movie, I think they got a lot of great shots. This low to the water one, we're kind of seeing from his perspective. Just the shots through the trees and getting the lighting right and everything. Pretty nice. One of the main criticisms this movie gets is just the narrative not being as strong, but the acting and the tactics used and the movements all being the stronger bit. And I have to be apt to agree. Like, I don't understand how the boat could still be here after so much time. Unless they just offered this guy like a ton of money. However, in the same scene, I can understand him, our guy here, taking off all his gear, going in nothing but his pants and his shirt with a pistol in order to make the swim stealthily there. Again, the pistols coming out more quickly than the rifles as complementary weapons rather than supplementary, since they were just carrying heavy loads. Just makes a lot of sense tactically and shows some good actor training, or at least some directorial stuff there. We saw the same thing when they were holding the guys at gunpoint when the helicopter crashed. That their rifles went on their back, but they were able to get to their pistols fairly fast. To see how his position has changed from let's go through them to let's try to not kill these guys. We'll see this here later in a couple of the scenes. I just felt like it was a bad time to kind of introduce that moral quandary into the movie here in the end. Just feels like it got sandwiched in, maybe to add some more value to it. Again, these moral and emotional things aren't really my forte, so maybe I'm misunderstanding some of what is supposed to be portrayed, or maybe it's just not that important. But there's obviously something there about not wanting to kill somebody. Whereas for me, the choice is simply about like, yo, we don't have any suppressors. Might have to do that with a knife. But see, there I go, putting myself into the movie as if I'm the one making decisions in this fictional world instead of just, you know, enjoying the show. To see this whole thing just like, hey, we're not killing any more people. Like suddenly now you want to like, you know, try to act like you're a good guy kind of deal after you've done everything you've done. Especially during this last part here. Shoots up their engine block instead. Like this part I get. Shooting up the engine block was an easy choice that he could make, and he had these guys like kind of dead to rights. Especially bringing in these guys as teenagers and kids. This is a weird moral quandary that takes place in real life too. People age differently in different countries and cultures. What we consider a kid in the US as a teen, maybe even a lower 20-year-old, has been an adult for a good 10 years in other countries in different situations. But yeah, the scene, I just never really liked it. I didn't really understand why he suddenly adopts stormtrooper aim, you know, after all the precision surgical shooting he's been doing, especially in a situation like this. Even if the moral quandary is there and he's like, yo, I don't want to kill any kids or anything like that. This whole firing from the back of a pickup thing is such a movie trope now. If he had gotten a little flatter, I would have liked to have seen that. Like putting his legs against the tailgate of the truck and laying flat and only popping up to take shots. I would have appreciated that a little bit more. But the fact that, you know, these guys are not getting shot at as much, I don't understand why that's not happening. The way that he's not taking out these guys that obviously are armed while they're chasing them. I don't know how long this chase is supposed to take, but the sun has like been coming up kind of very rapidly in these shots. And again, with these guys chasing them with guns, you know, they are getting shot at a little bit, but I'd think one of them be hit by now. And I think Santiago would take the choice to be like, hey, I'm just going to pop one of these guys, at least the driver, or at least the gunner, just to get them off them. Yeah, like I said, just kill them. Like, what is your problem? You know, if you could have did a tire shot, why didn't you do it earlier? And I think that's just the movie getting more movie-ish. And it just feels kind of weird. After what we got in the second act of the movie, in terms of actions, this scene just bugs me. It rubs me the wrong way because of how drawn out it is. Just because of how drawn out it is and how the shooting is no longer precise. There's a little bit of full auto coming from Santiago. The shots aren't immediate when his life is in danger. Even if you're having that whole thing like, yo, I'm not killing any more kids. Like, those guys are pointing guns at you and you're at the home stretch here. You know, it's time to put some dudes down. Like, you're at the final bit and, you know, dying just because you had a moral quandary. Because your friend got popped. Like, hey, maybe I just don't know and I don't relate to that situation. But it just felt kind of silly to me. And it just puts all this kind of rest of the movie in a rush mode. And yet, the actors and the action and the cinematography still carry it. It's just a narrative bit at this part that kind of falls away. Again, beautiful shot. Sun rising over there. Battling the waves to get back to the main boat. I do wonder, and I didn't think about this the first time I saw the movie, but I'm thinking about it now. where the guy is just docked out there with his boat and his lights on. I kind of wonder, like, what did the cartel kids think that guy was doing? Like, you know, it's none of our business kind of deal. Just leave him alone, I suppose. Maybe he's known to them and he didn't say he was doing anything, so whatever. And see, again, with the time and the budget they have for this movie, they keep doing these cuts where they're suddenly in the country and now they're suddenly out of the country. And it makes sense. It saves time. We don't see anything, you know, that we don't need to see. But I still feel like a little dissatisfied with how quick it is for some reason. Now, this surprised me. And I feel like it's a relinquishment or relinquish of the greed exhibited. He just signs his money over to his dead buddy's family. And I think it's very well representative of the experience they just went through, where, like, what do you do with everything that you've gained, you know, what you've done? And we talked about already, like, throwing away what you couldn't carry as far as baggage. And now when you have excess and there's, like, blood on it, like, do you keep it? Do you profit on it? The way a lot of people profit off their careers when they come home. And I'm not just talking about money when I say that. Or do you kind of let it go, just look for something else? Leave that benefit with people that it can benefit. I feel like Santiago did not want to give up his share. With all those guys leaving the room, I can't say I blame him. I might have kept a couple of bundles for myself, you know. To quote De Niro in Killer Elite, where he's taking the cash, like, for my expenses. Killer Elite, that'd be a good movie for us to go through as well. Say start 5 and end with 4. And see, like, I wasn't expecting Affleck to die in the movie. I really wasn't. I was expecting things to go wrong, but not in this manner. So it sort of surprised me in a way, and the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me. But see, even when leaving things behind, there's a little bit more to it. And I think this shows it very well. And it kind of plays to our human sides as an audience as well. So one, trying to get back with the girl that he knew, not just making it, you know, a nothing thing, throwaway in the movie. Which is very reminiscent of people going home and just marrying their high school sweethearts, you know, after their first deployment, or just trying to find something to move on to. But this bit right here, maybe we can do something with it one day. In this case, in the movie, you know, just hand him the coordinates. Coordinates to where they dropped off the cash and the crevasse that they couldn't carry. But to me, when I hear that line, maybe we can do something with it one day, represents the knowledge, the experience that one picks up just going through life's trials, military or not. In my case, mostly military, college, and working for a few different companies. You know, going back and farming opportunities out of what you know and what you can do after leaving the things behind that were just dragging you down and getting you into more trouble than they were worth. To me, that's what that represents. Of course, the simple part of the audience part is just saying like, hey, they still got the money, they got a chance. I don't know why. There's always a simpler part of the audience that will always be like, yo, what about the money that was left there? We can still go back. Kind of deal. Why don't they go back? And I feel like that's an understandable part. To drive that point home as the credits are playing, my dad watching Belly, he just totally didn't get the point of Belly. We can do Belly sometime too. And I remember he was saying like, why don't they make a Belly 2? They can get new drugs, move new product. I'm like, did you watch that film? Like they came to revelations about their bad lives like at the end of the movie. Stop selling drugs and stuff. It wasn't even about that at the end of the movie. So yeah, now we're in the credits. Thanks for watching with me. I really hope you enjoyed it. This is my first time doing it. Again, I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes. Feel free to point them out to me. If you know more about some stuff in the movie or you have comments about it, like, hey, point it out, comment on it. I look forward to the discussion. If you have any recommendations for movies I've seen or maybe you've seen, I'd have to do some others. I'd have to do some other movies that I know, and if there's any movies that I haven't seen that you suggest, I'd have to look them up. Hope you don't hear my dog snoring in the background. He kind of held it until this last little bit. Good dog. But yeah, I look forward to the discussion about this movie, comments, how you liked the movie, how you didn't like it, things you liked about it, things that it reminded you of, themes, and whatever movies you want to look into in the future, especially if they're related to Bigelow projects, because I feel like her movies being military movies, they take a lot of flack from the current generation of veterans that, you know, maybe they just don't know a little bit more about film analysis or just appreciating art and stuff like that. And then if you want to discuss the weapons and everything else like that, hit me up. All of my details for contact on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and email and everything like that is in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed this time we spent together. I'll see you guys around on the net. Take care of yourselves and see you for the next one. And that is the end of episode 1 of Shooter Commentary. Laters.